My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
I think this is such a great metaphor for parenting. A lot of our parenting in our mom life, right now we're trying to open the damn pickle jar, and we're trying to do it harder, trying to do it with more force. Maybe it's losing our temper with our kids or being firmer on things, when really our lives can be so much easier if we just change the strategy. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the lovely Brie Tucker.
Yo, what's up 2025? Woo!
As we've been seeing for the past episodes we've been doing, if you guys want to give Brie some ideas about what she can say, or even like just have Brie give you like a shout out, and the pleasure of hearing your work live on a podcast is always wonderful. So tell Brie to say something, go join our podcast group. You can do it in there. It is on Facebook and we have a link for you right in the show notes. And that's also where you get to talk with us. So it's a really great thing. It's a really great thing.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, today, we are talking about a subject that I think a lot of moms struggle with. It is how to find that balance in your life. How to find that balance between the things you have to do as a mom and the things you want to do. Or maybe it's a balance between your work life and your home life. Wherever it is, we are going to give you our strategy today and how to do that. Starting with a little story about a pickle jar. And we're going to get into that pickle jar right after this. So let's get on with the show.
You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast.
I'm just going to start with the fact that I love the pickle jar. The pickle jar has popped up in my life. Pickles in general, the pickle theme has popped up in my life a lot. So I have to say, when you brought this analogy to the table, I was enthusiastic about it, was I not? I was like, yes,
you were. Pickles. Yeah.
Pickles.
I love pickles too. My favorite are in the refrigerated section. They're the Clausen pickles because they're cold and they're crunchy. Like it has to be the refrigerated pickles.
So my thing about pickles is the theoretical side of pickles, because
you don't
I don't like pickles. I can't stand pickles.
Gosh.
So to me, a pickle represents a challenge, something that is sour and nasty in my life. It's one of our mutual friends, Jen, is the one who got me started on we call difficult things pickles.
Interesting.
But at the same time, for Christmas, I gave her an emotional support pickle.
Okay.
It was like a crocheted pickle that you hold when you're stressed out. So you hold the thing that is like sour and difficult. Okay.
Well, it's funny because I see pickles as like something delicious that I want to get to and I want to eat. So it's interesting that you are only interested in theoretical pickles, which I
like I didn't even know that there was a dimension for theoretical pickles, but there are. Pickles can represent things, and in my life, they do.
Yes. Well, we were talking about the pickle jar because, I mean, I think the jars in general, we've all had this experience about trying to open a jar while in the kitchen, and that thing will just not budge. Like your hand will start cramping. You'll get like those red grooves in your palm, and like nothing you do will open that pickle jar until, I don't know if it happens like this for you, Brie, but like all of a sudden, like I have all this pain in my hand, and then I'm like, wait a minute, like I need to be running it under hot water. Like that seems like the most pain-free option available to me. And then I run it under hot water and it comes off. It comes off all because of a change in strategy. And so I think this is such a great metaphor for parenting, because a lot of our parenting in our mom life right now, we're trying to open the damn pickle jar, and we're just trying to do it harder, trying to do it with more force. Maybe it's like losing our temper with our kids or being firmer on things, like all of that advice, when really our lives could be so much easier if we just change the strategy and do it in a different way. And so that's what this episode is all about today, is changing your strategy and doing it in a different way.
We are going to give you the seedy little secrets on how to make things work for you and to find that. And I have mixed feelings about this word, to find that balance that you need.
Yes.
Because, so if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that we have a coaching program and we call it Balance. And when we were trying to think of a name, we were like, what is something that we're all looking for? And we're like, oh, balance. This program will bring you balance. And it's funny because we've had conversations about it and we're like, balance is both, it's like a pickle. Balance is both a real thing that we crave because it's delicious and amazing and awesome, the Joanne side.
According to me, yes.
Yes. And it's theoretical because in some cases, like you're never really going to find a completely 50-50 balance of things, but you're going to find the balance theoretical that works for you. And sometimes balance, there's things in there that you're trying to balance that are nasty and prickly, like parenting the challenges. And you're trying to balance that with the good times. And we can help you with that. There is a way to find that theoretical and real balance.
Yes. Well, my friend Ruth says balance doesn't exist.
True.
And I agree that the 50-50 balance really doesn't exist. But the balance that you want in your life, it can exist. Because it's not about doing everything equally. It's about doing something in a way that makes you happy and feels confident and gives you energy. And our balance program, 4 years running now, tons of success stories. Like we'll post those in the comments as well. What we have in our balance program is something called the Lotus Award. It's named after the lotus flower. And this is important because what we're going to tell you today, it's all based on the lotus flower, guys. Because if you think of a lotus, it's like this gorgeous flower, which, by the way, only blooms 5 days a year. Don't know if you do that, Brie. On all of my lotus research, only blooms 5 days a year.
I think maybe I have heard that before, but I still feel like it's new knowledge.
Yeah.
And have that where somebody says something and you're like, I feel like I've heard it, but at the same time, I'm blown away by the fact you just said it.
All the time.
Hey, good. I'm not alone. All right, then.
So you picture this beautiful lotus floating in water, but actually it is not floating in water. It is attached to the ground underneath the water, and it has a really, really strong root system. And so that's where we're going to start here with this whole balance framework is before you can start thinking about a different strategy, you really have to know where you're starting from. You have to know your challenges. You have to know your trigger.
You have to be honest, right? Like, I think that's the other thing too. Sometimes we're not honest about those triggers.
Yeah. Like I was talking to a friend of mine the other night, and he was saying how he and his son really butt heads about some things. And he said, well, I think the times we butt heads is when my son ends up being the most like me, and we'll fight and we'll like argue, and then he'll do something to his little brother. And the thing he does to his little brother is basically call his little brother stupid and like says he doesn't know anything. And that really triggers my friend because his older brother did the same thing to him. And knowing that, going in with that, you realize that it's less a situation about your kid and less about what your kid needs to do and more about your own personal reaction to it. And when you know that, you then know the next step, because the next step isn't fixing your kid's behavior. It's really healing that part of yourself.
Yeah. Like you just said, it's all about acknowledging it in a way that's productive. So, and I'm saying this in a tongue-in-cheek way because, you know, my daughter is a mini me.
Yeah.
My 16-year-old daughter is definitely a mini me in the terms of like her energy that she puts out, a lot of her attitude. Like it cracks my husband up because we will literally say the same thing at the same time sometimes. And he like just looks back and forth at both of us and just shakes his head. He's like, oh my God, it's in stereo. It's in stereo. But I have a tendency to tell my daughter when she is pushing my buttons the way that you were talking about, like saying something that's triggering me. I have a tendency to look at her and go, listen, Missy, there isn't room for two of us at the same time, and I came first. But the good news is she knows that I'm half joking, but she also knows that's my point of I'm getting triggered. And normally, at least after that, I'll follow up with like whatever it was that she's doing or saying that I'm like, what you just said or did reminds me so much of XYZ. And it does help with both of us moving forward. Again, sorry. We went on a very long detour.
No, it isn't. You're a fight with your triggers. You will fight back right away. I am a flee with my triggers. So like my daughter does the exact same thing to me. And it's funny because the other night we just like to argue and we like to put ourselves on this hill and we will die on this hill, even if it is something so inconsequential. And I know this. And so I will start talking to her about something and she'll come up with a rebuttal and I will start being like, okay. And I like start leaving the room. And my husband just decided to mention this dynamic. And I was like pushing past him through the doorway because it was in her room. She says something and I'm like, okay. And I'm heading out the door. My husband's like, both of you like to argue about that. I'm like, excuse me. And I just leave the room because I am a flea and I don't want to get to that situation. I need that time to think about what I really want.
That's what I was going to say. Both methods are valid. And I know that you're probably going like, how is that helping me find balance, you guys? Because if you don't know what's triggering you, then you can never find that balance because you're going to constantly be slipping all the time. Ding. Yep.
And you're going to blame yourself for it. But knowing your triggers is such an important part. And the next parts of the framework are controlling what you feel, what you say, what you hear, and what you see. And we're going to get into that right after this.
Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
I think I just won my taxes.
Yeah?
I just switched to H&R Block in about 1 minute. All I had to do was drag and drop last year's return into H&R Block, and bam, my information is automatically there.
So I don't have to go digging around for all my old papers to switch?
Nope.
Sounds like we just leveled up our tax game.
Switching to H&R Block is easy. Just drag and drop your last return. It's better with Block.
So we mentioned before that the lotus flower is connected under the water to the earth, and you're noticing your triggers in that way. Now, there's 5 petals on our lotus flower because we get to make the decisions about what we have on our lotus flower.
Hey, so I love our lotus flower. Our lotus flower is freaking
gorgeous.
Amazing.
Gorgeous. And the first petal represents know your triggers, knowing where you're starting with. The next 3 petals represent basically your senses.
Okay.
What you feel in terms of your stress response, what you say and hear in terms of your communication style, and what you see in terms of what do you see in your future? What do you want for your future? And so let's start with that first one, Brie.
Okay.
What you feel. Because stress is real.
What? I'm never stressed.
When you know
people, I'm making veins pop out of my forehead right now because I am the queen of stress. Go on.
Well, it's funny because we were stressed about a tax situation that was happening yesterday in our business. Basically, if you guys are a part of our balance program, you basically got a renewal notice that said your balance would be renewed in the next 24 days, in the next 10 days. You got a renewal notice every single day of the week. And we're like, what is this? And I was so angry about it and stressed. And Bree's here being like, I don't know what to do right now. You're so stressed. And I feel like I have to match the stress, but I don't like to match the stress.
You guys in podcast land, that was the exact conversation. I was like, are you okay? She's like, why do you keep asking? I'm like, because I'm trying to match your stress level. And I'm like, I'm freaking out, man.
But
it was a good thing. I was trying to come up to it, but I was stressed out in a different way. You were stressed out in a frustrated, but we'll find a solution way. Bree just wanted to kill somebody. So it was a different level.
A typical reaction. And like, honestly, like thinking in an evolutionary like standing, our ancestors, when they were faced with a stressor, it was usually something that they could run away from. It was something visible that they could see. It was like a tiger stalking them through the grass, and they would run and they would get all their adrenaline and all their cortisol, and then they'd like have a celebration when they were saved by the members of their village, and they like made the tiger go away.
There was a clear ending there. Right?
Yeah, it was a clear ending. And the stress in our world doesn't have so much of a clear ending. That email inbox is always going to keep refilling.
The news headlines are going to keep coming in. The calls from the school are going to keep coming in. Like at the stressors, they don't stop. They don't
so
stop.
You need...
Won't stop. Ba, 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 ba.
Don't stop, know that song.
Stop. I don't know either. I think I made it up. I think it was part of another song. Welcome to Bree's perimenopause ADHD episode, guys.
Yeah. Well, so when you talk about stress, the object is not to have no stress, because that's not going to happen. That's not possible.
That's that imaginary balance that we think exists, but it doesn't.
The object is to know the ways you could release your stress. And we like to think of it in terms of mind, body, unicorn, where the first part, the mind, is processing those emotions. Now, Bree, like you and I were raised in a way where we weren't taught how to process our emotions as kids. It was like, you're making too big a deal out of things, or like, you did this, therefore you're grounded for a week. Like, no one taught us to process emotions at all.
Like, I feel like our generation was, I really loved these guys, Dumb Dads. They have a Dumb Dads podcast, and they do these like really great videos where they show parenting through the ages. And it's just like, and then so like where you and I grew up for the most part, it's constantly just a note on the counter. Like, love ya, left some Hot Pockets in the freezer, I'll be home by tomorrow morning. Like, we were just told to like I feel like, although I love my parents, mom and dad, I know you listen to the podcast and I love you dearly, I still feel like when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade, I was just shoved out there with a key wrapped around my neck and told, good luck. Walk to school and
handle it on your own.
Yeah.
That's how you learn. Handle it. Yeah. Well, research has, I don't want to say improved, but the amount of research and the amount of like delving into these things, like we have a bigger resource library now. We know that people, especially kids, need help processing emotions. And so with us, we need a way to process our emotions too, which is where part of the mind comes in. In our Balance community, we recommend journaling, and we teach you exactly how to express those feelings. In the Happy Mom Summit coming up, my session, which guys, your Happy Mom Summit ticket's free, by the way. We're going to put the waiting list right down there in the show notes. But my session is all about mind, body, unicorn and how to process those emotions. So make sure you catch that one. But we talk about something in Balance too called our Bob. And our Bob is that voice in our head that tells us we're a piece of crap. We don't know what we're talking about. No one respects us. And that's the thing that really, really gets under our skin and tends to increase the amount of stress in our lives. But knowing it exists and knowing that it is coming down on you, that is a really great thing to know and to learn.
Yeah.
So in addition to knowing what's going on in your mind, also taking out the stress with your body. And something that we talk a lot about on the podcast is your unicorn time, doing something that is good for you. So those are the things to add in terms of how you feel, to affect how you feel.
What's a unicorn example? Like, because we talk about unicorn time, which comes from Eve Rodsky. We love Eve's work. We've had her on the podcast a couple of times. So it's fantastic. But what's something that you enjoy doing for your unicorn? Because I think sometimes people think that bubble baths can count. And I don't want it to count.
I've actually made like part of my unicorn my work life too. So like the podcast is a unicorn time. Speaking to people and helping people is my unicorn time. Delving into all the stuff about psychology, it's my unicorn time. I basically turn unicorn time into a career, and then I have to find more unicorn time. So it's a problem too.
You're like, so I found my unicorn time, and then I turned it into a job.
Work.
But it
Yes.
was
And then I have to find more.
okay. So with that being said, I would say that probably I don't admit it freely, but this podcast is probably my unicorn type. And you know why I don't admit it freely? Bob tells me that for those of you guys who don't know, I do a lot of the producing on the podcast episode. So I can't be excited about it because I'm not perfect at it, which we already said perfection, as in the epitome, doesn't always exist. And I don't think I'm ever, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think perfection exists for me on the podcast. Because even if we were the number one podcast in the world, I would still be like, yeah, but our sound was off that day. Like, I don't do a good enough job with XYZ. I don't know. You know me. I'll find
Well, it's
some
always
reason.
like the goalpost keeps moving too, because we just got like, guys, if you've been listening to the No Guilt Mom podcast forever, or if you're brand new, welcome. If you're brand new, we just had a huge amount of new people join us here at the No Guilt Mom podcast. Something like numbers of downloads like we've been dreaming. And even seeing those numbers, we're like, yeah, well, we could do better here. It's nothing about reaching the goal ever. It's nothing about that. It's always in our heads.
Right. And I think that's a big thing for us to articulate. While we do feel like we're pretty good at practicing the things that we say, it's still a struggle. It's still a struggle. We still have to stop and think about it. I don't know when it'll become second nature. I don't know if it ever will be complete second nature where I don't even think about anything. I don't ever pause and go, okay, I need to restructure this. But it has become easier and easier over time. So easy that it isn't hard.
And it also is easier to communicate to others as well, which is part of the reason you get in and you do all this work and you look at what you're thinking and you look at how your Bob affects you. And so that's the next step of our framework is what you say and what you hear. And we'll get into that right after this.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Oh my goodness, you guys, I have found the coolest thing. Armoire makes getting dressed easy. With clothing rental membership from Armoire, build the perfect wardrobe with brands that are high quality, unique, and oh my gosh, recommended just for you. All you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items from your dynamic, personalized closet. The style shows up to your door in as little as 2 days. I love the convenience. Then you're ready for all the new clothes. Swap them out and look for more new to you styles.
Bree, both of us struggle with what to wear these days. And I feel like styles have changed so much recently, not to mention changes in our own bodies. I quite literally have no idea what to wear, which is why I love Armoire, because it allows you to rent these high quality designer clothing for anything. You don't have to keep it. You can send it back and a stylist picks it out for you.
So right now, our listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That's up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style/guilt. That's ARMOIRE.style/GUILT to get up to 50% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.
So we went over the first two pedals, is knowing your triggers, knowing where you're starting from, and then looking at how you feel in terms of stress levels and really managing that stress. The third part is what you say and what you hear. I mean, those are two different things.
Oh my God, yes.
Two different things, right?
Right.
And one affects the other. More so, I think like the hearing affects what you say more than the saying affects what you hear, because so many of us are in this like wheel that goes around and around where we hear, for example, our kids say something and we interpret it in our mind to mean something. And then that's what we say. Now, what we want to focus on is what we're interpreting that thing we hear to mean. And I'll give you an example. In our balance community today, I talked about this on my Joe with Joe, which is like the 15-minute talk show I do every morning for our balance members. I love it. And we're talking about a child who can't appreciate the good things in life. This is how the parent presented it. And I think we can all relate to that. Having that kid who has all these good things going for them, and then that kid tends to harp on that one little negative thing. And you think that negative thing is like means the kid is like full of negativity and you're doing a bad job and they're not grateful for all the things that you're doing for them. Like I've felt that way before. Have you felt that way before, Brie, about your kids?
Oh yeah.
But there are all these examples that we have. Now, the trick is though, a lot of times we're assuming what it means. And something that we teach in the balance framework and for you to do in your life is to really catch your assumptions about what your kids are doing. In the case I mentioned before, the child had a great time at soccer, won the game, scored some goals, all these great things happened. And then as soon as he got in the car, he starts complaining about how he wants to be on his brother's team instead because his brother's team is cooler. And so you hear that and you're like, this kid isn't appreciating the good things in his life. I mean, I think that's a natural response.
That's exactly where I went with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the trick is coming in there and being like, is this what's really going on? Or could it be something different? And taking that curiosity and leaning into that and actually asking those questions to figure out what are the reasons that the child wants to be on the brother's team? I mean, is it that he's unappreciative and negative, or is there something else? And I found in my maybe he is having some friend issues on one team, like his current team. And he says that, there's more kids on his brother's team and maybe he just wants to go be there because there's more friend options. Maybe he looks up to his brother and just wants to be on the same team as his brother. I mean, there are so many maybes in this scenario, but I can't give advice for all the maybes in the world because there are so many maybes. But I can teach you how to ask the questions of your kid to really find out what the reason is. And then that'll give you more actions to act.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of times we are preset to go to that judgment, that snap judgment, because we live in a culture where we have to do things quickly. We have to make a lot of snap decisions in our daily life. I mean, let's just take driving for an example. There's a lot of snap decisions you have to make while you're doing that. So our brain is used to having to process information very quickly and come up with a response very quickly. But you're right. Pause. You take a moment to think about the situation, all of those maybes pop up. You yourself can become a Libra and immediately look at all of the options that could be out there. As a Libra, I feel like I am literally a walking scale all the time. I'm always like, well, I could do this, or I could do this, or this could be it.
It could be all the things. And like in that situation too, acknowledge how you might be being triggered. Like my instance in that situation would be like, okay, and I would run. Because I need my time to get triggered. Bree's a fighter and she might fight right away. And that's okay. Yeah. Once you find yourself you're fighting, you're like, okay, let's take this one step at a time and come back and look at it.
Yeah,
so it just depends on
I have found that with my kids, the best way for me to communicate with them is to be vulnerable and to let them know what my thought process is telling me. Mm-hmm. So to say to them, like in that scenario, all right, I feel like you're saying that you don't appreciate the league that you're in and the people that you're around and that you don't think that your team is good. Is that right? And then normally I will get something back from them as like, no, or kinda. right? And then we
Yeah.
can dig down deeper. But you have to be vulnerable and throw out there what is actually happening in your head.
Yeah. And also like how you say it too, because Brie, you send it very tentatively, which is how is recommended to say it. You're not saying like, you don't appreciate this league and you don't like the kids there. You're saying it sounds like this may be the case. So it really gives the option for your kids to be like, no, that's not the case. That's not what's happening.
Or to safely say, kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that, right?
You make it a safe environment when you say it tentatively like that instead of absolute.
Exactly. Yeah. So then like what's the next
pedal is all about what you see in the future, because we are so on autopilot as parents. There's so much we have to do at all times. I mean, just this morning I was talking to you, Brie. I got a text message saying that spring conferences were open. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to get on right now because all of these other parents are psycho and they grab all the good spots right away. And so
True that. You wait, you snooze, you lose. It's a saying for a reason.
Yeah. So,
but
you have all of these things popping up at all times. So if you don't take the time to really define what you want for your future, that's always going to be pushed to the back. Mm-hmm. Always, always, always. I mean, right now, my big BHAG is to write my next book. And that is what I am putting in my head every single day, so that I look for opportunities on how I can achieve that while also reacting to the opportunities that happen in my day-to-day parenting life too. So you control what you see by having a huge goal, reminding yourself of it. And that also brings you more happiness in the long run too. There's been so many studies that say like when you go after personal pursuits, it ends up filtering to all other areas of your life, including your parenting.
Exactly.
Do you have a BHAG right now, Brie?
I was afraid you're going to ask that. I don't want to share mine right now.
I know. I was like, Brie was like going on to the next one. Exactly. Next.
I don't want to share my BHAG right now. I'll be honest with you. I'm like, I'll share it in the ballads group, but I'm not ready for podcast level of vulnerability today.
I always think nobody listens to me. So like no one listens like to the podcast because we're recording this, just you and me. And so like, it's really hard for me to make that mental leap to think that other people are listening, but I know you're listening. Like listen to, like I always talk to you podcast land when I'm talking, but also my brain's like, is there really people there, Joanne, or are you just imagining it? Like,
well, again, we roll through this every once in a while. I told you, like, there was an episode quite while ago, because it was over the summer, where I shared that someone that I knew from when I was in college, my college boyfriend's little brother messaged me and said he listens to the podcast. And I was like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And then like the other day, my mom was like, oh, your aunt was saying that she didn't hear you talk much on this one episode. And I'm like, I forgot people listen. I had a migraine. And I was yeah. It was really easy. As soon as my mom said what episode it was, I'm like, oh yeah, I had a migraine that day. So I didn't talk about it. Joanne had to carry it.
It happens. It's funny though. Like it's like a whole side conversation. We could do a whole episode on all the weird stuff that happens.
There's things that I am happy to like that are coming. Keep listening. Brie has like a story bubbling. I'm like a volcano getting ready to erupt. I have like things that are right here that I'm about ready to just be like, we're going to do a whole episode about this. Boom.
Those are usually the great ones.
Yes, they are. Great ones. They are.
Well, we have just one more pedal to go over, and it's boundaries. So that once you have all these things.
This is like the most important pedal. And it has to be the last one because of it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
And then you interrupt with your sorry, I'm interrupting.
I do. Again, people. Hello, my ADHD baby. Hello, perimenopause. Brie is really struggling right now. And Joanne has to put up with it every day.
Brie. No, I don't put up with it. I enjoy it. I will just call you on it.
And I appreciate it. Because then I'm like, I'm not doing a good job masking. It's coming out.
Yeah, it's all good. It's one of my boundaries, Brie, that I put in place to protect my sanity. There we go. Nice little segue right there. But boundaries, as you saw, like they're important. They're not just things you say you don't do. They're things that you do to protect what you want. And a lot of us think that boundary setting is just saying no to things, and it's not.
It isn't. It's so much more than that.
It's a lot about communication and also communicating with people what you need in the present moment so that you are not resentful and spiteful. Everyone's like, what's up with her? Like that's, I'm sure like my kids do that. They're like, are you okay, Mom? What's going on? And I'm like, I just need a break.
No, I can't even, I've told you this before. The perspective that I carry into this is been divorced and remarried now, and my husband and I bringing in things that we learned from our first marriage, and one of which is being extremely straightforward.
Yeah.
And so like an example of something I have to tell my husband, and this will kind of and this is it's a boundary thing that he thought he was doing right, but he was completely getting it backwards because he was doing somebody else's boundary. So my example here real quick, I hope, is that when I get really emotional and I'm overwhelmed and there's just too much going on and I'm kind of getting into my anxiety, depression, my husband will often say, okay, it sounds like you have a lot going on. And he'll they go in the other room. He'll give me space. And I have told him on a couple of occasions, I appreciate the space. Anything over 10 minutes, I need you to come and get me. And he's like, why? I'm like, because anything over 10 minutes, my brain turns into now I'm calm and now you don't want me. I've become too much. I'm too overwhelming. And you're not here because you don't like me. And he's like, no, I was just trying to give you space like my first wife would like. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you right now, I need hugs. I need you to come up and hug me and be there physically. And he was like, okay. I have to remind him of that boundary a lot, that I go from fight to come in and be here with me. Otherwise, it causes days worth of hurt and upset and holding things in and not communicating.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
But knowing that about yourself, would you be able to switch the tables and be after your 10 minutes and be okay, I need you now? And tell him directly?
I'm working on that. I am. Yeah. So I don't think I've ever said that to him. So actually, next time I see him, I will tell him that I am working on that. I am working on, because in my mind, he shouldn't have to figure out what I want. I should be able to communicate it. So that is a goal that I have, is to work on communicating better and letting him know when I need him with me.
Oh, yeah. So. I think that's a great example. I felt the same with my kids. I mean, I remember you telling me all the time about how you have to bribe your kids to hang out with you. My kids are reaching the ages. I'm feeling it now. I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
Because I immediately I'm they don't want me. They don't want me. And then I go cry in my room. I am processing through that right now and trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do now that they need their space? I have all this time open. But it's crazy. It's crazy. It's the circle of life.
Yes, it is. Let's do it together, girl. Circle of life unwinding. I don't know.
I can't keep my own tune if I hear other tunes. It's it's not, I'm not a practice singer. I can only do it in my head. If I hear other things, I'll go bad. I'll go off key so fast.
Wow.
I'm not practiced in that. Yes, but we hope that by listening to this, we gave you some ideas about how to implement some more balance in your life based on, where you're coming from, what you feel in your body for stress, what you are hearing, what you are saying, and what you are seeing for your future, and also how to protect that. Yeah. So let us know and come talk with us in the No Guilt Mom podcast group that we have going on Facebook. Come on over. And until next time, remember, the best mom's a happy mom. Take care of you. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
If you'd like to support the show further, you can share episodes with your loved ones, leave a positive review, or follow us on social media at No Guilt Mom. You could also show your love by visiting our amazing podcast sponsors. We have a link in the show notes.
When it comes to raising kids, there's so much to consider. Things like, what do we feed them? When do we feed them? How do they sleep? What does it look like to raise kind kids? How does their nervous system work? How do I keep myself calm? What are my triggers? There's so much that comes into play, and we are distilling all of that information for you at Voices of Your Village podcast, where we bring experts in the field of early childhood and education and psychology and across the board so that you don't have to comb the internet for information. You get to show up and hang out and have shame-free, judgment-free conversations and insights into what it looks like to raise kind, empathetic, emotionally intelligent humans. I'm Alyssa Blask Campbell. I have a master's degree in early childhood education. I'm a mom of 2, and I am walking this journey right alongside you doing this work. Come hang out with me at Voices of Your Village, and we can dive into real conversations with actionable tips.